What's up, everybody, and welcome to PPR podcast number 120, the Week 4 recap and Week 5 preview show. As always, I'm Chase Izidoro. That's Bowe Fertig. Bowe, 4 weeks in, season's starting to get into things.
We're almost
right
halfway there, Chase.
I know,
in
man,
a blink
it's
of an
flying by.
Yeah.
What was kind of your biggest takeaways so far from Week 4?
One of my bigger takeaways was seeing young gentlemen thrive and succeed through failure, right? We saw Martell Hughes and James Taval show up on set after a really tough loss against Cathedral. And then we saw Montgomery, who had one of the tougher losses that I've seen as a South Bay Week reporter. One of the tougher losses at the end in a game that either team could have won. They showed up to the Dine and Dash, which you were there, and it looked like they were in full force, excited to be there, and put on a great show. It's those individual efforts that really stand out to me. It's really what it comes down to is the 20% of what happens to you and 80% how you respond. You could always find out more about people through failure than successes. And to see those people fail in the moment but succeed in the end was one of the bigger standouts to me in Week 4.
That's kind of honestly one of the hardest things about the Dine and Dash is not knowing if a team's going to lose, if they're going to show up.
Right.
So I have to shout out Montgomery because not only did they show up, and I talked to all the kids, they were totally fine. They put on a great show.
Right.
They were in as good a spirits as it can be, especially with
the energy
how bad
felt really good.
Especially with how bad of a loss. We'll get on that in a second.
Yeah.
But, not only did they do that last year, a team decided not to show up because of a loss, and they stepped in when they were not prepared.
Right.
They were not even supposed to be the Dine and Dash team that week, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll do it on the spot." So Montgomery, big praise to them as always. I love what they do, and that program is just awesome.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about it.
It starts with the coaching staff, and I'll just get right into that game. Right, so it was a block kick at the end of the game. Everyone, especially if you're on special teams, right? Even a kickoff, you're told to, if it's an onside kick, if it's kicked to you, if you're close to the boundary, just knock it out of bounds and you're good to go. So that's what Montgomery did, and unfortunately on a field goal kick, which I talked to a lot of people over the weekend, they still don't even know the clarification of it, and we'll probably get more as we move forward this week. But the kid knocked it out of bounds, thought he did the right thing, but on a ball that's blocked and that falls on the other side of the line of scrimmage, the team who kicked it cannot advance it. The best thing to do in that situation is just leave it.
Yeah.
Or scoop and score. Try to scoop and score. The last thing the kid could have done was knock it out of bounds. He did, unfortunately. It gave El Cajon Valley a fresh set of downs, no more time on the clock, and El Cajon Valley kicked the game-winning field goal. But it was a back-and-forth game, tied at 7, tied at 10, tied at 17, and 24. So the final was 27-24. Back-and-forth contest. Paris Dixon, the wide receiver, has 4 receiving touchdowns. All of the passing touchdowns for DeBose has gone to Paris Dixon. What I have 15 receptions for 256 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. DeBose was a threat on the defensive side and offensive side. We know about his legs. He showed the ability to throw the ball well. Also, he is a player that is going to carry that El Cajon Valley team. He had a scoop and score on defense when everyone stopped. No whistle was blown. It was a ball that was thrown behind the line of scrimmage. So he scooped, he scored while everyone else stopped. It's something you coach week in and week out. And then had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown to Paris Dixon. Montgomery had a quality game as well. Andy Diana, the sophomore quarterback, played well. Made a few rookie mistakes, as you would expect from a sophomore quarterback, but also showed the ability to extend plays with his legs and find guys when it was needed. Jose Guadalupe, the starting running back, carries the toe, averages 20 yards or averages 20 touches per game, and carried that team, put the offense on his back, but they just fell short at the end.
Honestly, I was blown away by the highlights. From what I saw from DeBose, I haven't had the chance to see too much of him.
Yeah.
He looks really good as a young quarterback. Yeah. Same with Dixon as well for his wide receiver, but also Deonda. There's so many of these young guys. It feels like there's a new one uncovered every week. There's another diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal game. Obviously, you don't want to see it end like that from the Montgomery side of things, at least. But, just a phenomenal game and really lived up to the hype of being South Bay Game of the Week.
Yeah, and Montgomery, they drive down with a little over a minute remaining. They drove down within a minute to tie it at 24, and then El Cajon Valley comes roaring back, and it was really DeBose. He took the team on his shoulders and rushed it, probably like 3 or 4 attempts just to get them in field goal range.
Wow, just incredible game. And hats off to El Cajon Valley. A team that's never really big on anybody's radar, but they've been putting in a lot of great performances early on in this season.
Caught up with Nick Osborne after the game, and he said that was one of his better wins in his 6 years as head coach.
I'd love to hear that. Well, now we get on to what was the game of the week. Helix 53, Madison 19. Madison falls to 2-2. Helix goes to 4-0. I think we learned a lot more about Helix than what we did in Madison in this game. I still believe in Madison being a great team, and they looked competitive. They looked competitive in that whole first half, but then Helix just took off in the second half. Kevin Allen III, man, he is unstoppable at times. And when you get that type of running back, and then you have the wide receiver weapons like Jackson Daniels, you have Rylan Jesse, who was not a quiet night, but they didn't rely on him like they've had in previous games. But Kevin Allen was just dominant. And to see Helix go to that level, it starts to creep them up towards the, can they start playing with the Lincolns and Carlsbads? Because they've been the ones that separated themselves so far.
The impressive thing about that when they did it at Madison, and Kevin Allen had a big game against a quality defense, one of the top defenses in San Diego. So to do that on the road at Madison, we knew about Helix's offense, but it just went to show even more against a quality defense on the road, their balance on offense. You can stack the box, and then you have Jackson Daniels one-on-one. Probably one of the better catches we've seen in the last handful of years, right? In the corner of the end zone, near the pylon. So Rylan Jesse, the fact that they don't have to rely on him week in and week out also shows the depth and quality of that team. We talked about the drop-off from 1A, 1B, Lincoln, and Carlsbad. It's the significant drop-off now from the top 4 teams. The Granites, Helix, Lincoln, and Carlsbad. Those 4 teams, after that, those are the open teams. I don't think we're going to have any more teams fighting for those top 4 spots. Although you can maybe mention Cathedral, but they're 1-3 right now, so I think they're going to contend in Division 1. But they still have the Western League to go through, so a lot to be told about that. But a huge drop-off after the top-tier teams in San Diego right now.
I think, there's obviously different ways the math could play out, and we'll see how it goes out. But if we were picking who would be our 4, I think it has to be those 4.
Yeah.
Lincoln, Carlsbad, Helix, and Granite, I think have separated themselves a little bit. Maybe you can make more arguments where Helix and Granite are closer to the rest of the pack.
Right.
But they have been the ones that have shown out and shined the most so far this season.
Yeah.
And, to see a win like this over Madison, when you're playing such a close game, and then it could be demoralizing to Madison's side, but could be what you need to energize you, especially going in this week. We'll talk about who Helix will be playing. But, man, that is a massive win for the Scotties, who, bad taste in their mouth how they left last season. Now they might be on a mission to go win it all. I mean, are we going to be at the point where we're saying they're contenders? Who knows? I think they're definitely contenders for the Open. That is for certain.
Right.
They will also be playing against each other, them in Granite Hill. So it's going to be a phenomenal game, but just a phenomenal performance from Helix. We move on to what was probably and arguably the best game on the docket.
Best game of the season, I believe.
Ramona beating Poway beating Ramona 35-34 in overtime. Poway has, we got a little bit scared of them when they lost to St. Augustine. We were like, all right, what's this team going to be life after Connor Rath? They look just fine, especially going to Ramona, a tough place to go play. And then you're playing against a very, very good Ramona team. I mean, James Clifford, we talk about his older brother, but 5 for 68, gets the huge 2-point conversion to send it to OT. Tony Arujo's block point after the attempt in OT, and Jake Say rumbling in for the touchdown. I mean, Ramona also had great performances as well. Adrian Enriquez, Jamil Kassab had a great touchdown as well. But man, to see that from Poway, they just keep fighting. Like just when you think like, okay, this Poway team's maybe not up for it, they're totally right there. They're a great program and a great team this year.
Last year they fought with everything they had, and this year it's showing as well that coaching staff at Poway. The head coach is slipping my mind right now. I can see his face. He's a Poway alum, Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams has done an exceptional job with that program. And you love to see alum go back to their programs. It always seems to add a little bit more. And it's one of the reasons why Granite Hill's program is doing so well right now. Cobbs and that coaching staff were majority from Granite Hills. So it just always adds a little bit more to the program, especially when kids can see those coaches who had played there. It just holds more weight, it feels like, at the high school program. So it's great to see Poway. And week in and week out, we've seen amazing wins that we didn't see coming. And not that we didn't see this win coming, but in that fashion, scoring that many points against a quality team was definitely stood out.
Absolutely. If you're telling me that Poway would have to put up 35 against Ramona and going into OT to force the game, I probably would have favored Ramona to come out on top. Incredible win for them, but we want to talk about some wins that we didn't see coming. We have been talking nonstop about El Cap being a great team, and we still think they are. But for Steel Canyon to go out there and win 42-6, that was something I did not see coming at all. So hats off to the Cougars. I mean, after 2 bad defeats in back-to-back weeks to Madison and San Marcos, where they really weren't in the game, they go out there against one of the hottest teams in the county in El Cap. Nico Jara, 2 punt returns, and he got a receiving touchdown. And this kid, Jonathan Sablon, keeps running the rock, 3 total touchdowns. This Steel Canyon team has shown that they can be very good at times. Maybe not to the level of those top-level teams, but if we're talking about teams in Division II who can put up a fight, I think they're right there.
Steel Canyon has had some tough losses and some losses by wide margins. So for them to come out and beat El Cap by 36, what a huge win for that program.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one that we kind of didn't see coming, and maybe we need to start focusing more on, Scripps Ranch. Another hot team going down with Mount Carmel, a great passing attack with Tamapeo. But Scripps Ranch, 29-10. The only loss this season for Scripps Ranch was that goal line stand at the end of the game against La Jolla. What have we seen from this Scripps Ranch team? We know about Noah Gardnera. Cash Campbell's been a very decent quarterback for them as well. He's been performing well. I mean, should we be putting more focus on them, and especially the upcoming this Saturday with the Battle of the I-15 game against Mira Mesa?
Yeah, we should definitely be paying more attention to them, especially because that was Mount Carmel's first loss of the season, right? A coach that goes overlooked is offensive coordinator Lee Cole, right? He tough departing from Del Norte and then goes to a program, teams up with Gardnera, and puts together a great performance against a quality defense. I loved the running attack of Scripps Ranch, and quarterback Cassius Campbell stands tall in the pocket. He's fun to watch. A big southpaw that we don't talk a lot about, so looking definitely down the road to see what he has in store. And it's a defense that continued to put pressure on the quarterback, and whenever you can put pressure on the quarterback, Mount Carmel averaged 30 points per game. They scored 10. So Scripps Ranch put together a full game this week.
Absolutely, and that's probably what stands out the most is the fact that Mount Carmel was held to 10. Anytime you do that to Drew Westling's offense, that's a phenomenal game all around. Now, we said we would be taking requests from Instagram or Twitter or YouTube. So we got a request from Cindy1121 on Instagram asking for some Claremont updates on the podcast.
Thank you, Cindy.
So you want Claremont updates, we'll be giving you Claremont updates.
Right.
I have a soft spot for Claremont just simply because I've had friends that have gone there. And if we're being honest, they haven't been the greatest football program over the years. So anytime the Chieftains are playing well, I'll be the first one to give them love. And I have to with Eduardo Gonzalez. Coach Gonzo taking over. He's been in that program for the JV and varsity level. Now he's at the head coaching spot. We talked about Southwest being a very good team coming into it. Claremont getting the win 41-34 in really a shootout of a game. This sophomore, Tyler Allen, 12 for 110 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. In 4 games, he's got 396 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, but also dual threat quarterback Jackson Merrifield, 126 yards and a touchdown and an interception through the air, but also added 95 on the ground and 3 touchdowns on the ground. We want to see these programs that really haven't had their moments come to shine, and it's so good to see these young kids in this program, like a sophomore, balling out for them as well. I hope for only more from Claremont.
And Cindy was mentioning the coaching staff turning that program around, and that's what was holding that program back. They just couldn't find a consistent coaching staff, and it's great to see and hear Coach Gonzalez step up in that way. When you bring up a guy that's been with the program, you talk about coaches, alum, they bring more to the show. I don't really know any other way to say that, but just kids seem to respond a little differently from it. Jackson Merrifield, they love to run that speed option play. And it's great to see when plays break down, he can make plays with his legs. You talked about the running back. He had a nice 360 move, splitting 2 defenders and then scoring on the sideline. 2 guys that stood out to me on the defensive side, Leo Landerier, the captain, had an interception, a 2-point conversion, and he had 8 carries. 8 of those carries going for 3 scores. He leads the team with 39 tackles. It reminds me of the linebacker last year from Point Loma in
Chase Lowry.
Thank you very much. And Leroy Marshall, a big guy on the defensive line, was a disruptor in the backfield. So not only did they put up 41 points, Southwest was down 21 at one point, and it's great to see a program like that stay in it. They fought through it at the end, but turnovers really killed them. Quarterback Justin Pidgey, 273 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, completed 62% of his passes. So not a bad day in the end, but they just fell short at the end because of the turnovers early, and they were just down too much.
Yeah, those were really some of the more. Some of those were shocking, like the Scripps Ranch one, Steel Canyon one. But some of the more shocking ways in a different way was just how bad Helix was able to beat Madison, and also a big win for Claremont, which is now we're seeing them move to 2-2 and see if now they can become a winning program.
We talked about those lower divisions. It's going to be the offense to
absolutely
push them forward, and Claremont showed that with the 41-point victory.
Absolutely. Well, now we have our top 9 Tuesdays, which come out now, and we've been waiting a little bit just to see if we were gonna, let's see how things played out and see where things go. So as it stands, I'm ready to reveal my top 9.
Okay, who you got?
At 1, I still have a 1A, 1B situation.
I'm right there with you.
With Carlsbad. I have Carlsbad at 1, Lincoln at 2, Julian Sane, 5 touchdown performance, Achilles Smith Jr., that pass to Mekhi Gray. I might have watched it.
On that 50-yard bomb on the money.
72 yards.
Well, yeah, but he threw it 50 yards in the air on the money.
I might have watched it for 30 minutes straight, man. It was beautiful. When it comes to those two teams, I feel so wrong because I feel like I'm watching them now with scrutiny. Because I'm like, okay, how am I separating them?
Yeah.
When I shouldn't.
I don't think we need to do that.
When I shouldn't be.
Right.
When I shouldn't be at all because they're phenomenal. But now I'm looking at it like, okay, Carlsbad beat Mater Dei and held them shut out at the first half. Oh, Lincoln didn't do that. But it was down to special team stuff, like a couple plays that went wrong.
And that's going to happen.
So I really am truly 1A, 1B. Mm-hmm. If I have to pick, and you told me, I go Carlsbad above them right now. Strength of schedule, whether it's cleaner, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to separate them. But I do have Helix at 3. I think a dominant second half performance over Madison pushes them up. I have Granite Hills falling down to 4 from 3.
It's still open division team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they still play really well. I have Cathedral Catholic at 5, even though they're 1-3. I still
think
best
1-3 team possibly in the state.
I still think they're a really good team, and we're going to find out just how good they are this coming week. Mission Hills, I have climbing up to 6. I thought they had an excellent win again. And really, that only one was that one slip up against Granite Hills. I think, new quarterback, getting used to it, and a very tough defense.
Yeah,
I think they're still a very capable team. Madison have going down to 7. The Honor Bowl game, I was a little concerned. It wasn't their cleanest game, even though they were still in it. It wasn't huge red flags or anything. But when you lose to a team like Helix, it's hard to put you exactly behind them. Honestly, I feel like this team, La Costa Canyon, could be higher. I don't think they're lower, but at 8 it feels disrespectful because they are one of the best, well-rounded teams in this county.
Balanced
I can't
on
get enough
offense,
of them.
solid defense. I agree.
Yeah, and then at 9 I have El Camino, still riding high on them. I was kind of flipping back and forth between them and La Costa Canyon, but I think what La Costa Canyon has been able to accomplish so far this season, they deserve to be 8. So those are my top 9. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I agree with you at Cathedral Catholic. Most people probably have Cathedral Catholic a little lower because they're 1-3 record, but strength of schedule, they're playing against top quality teams in the southern section, and they're all been competitive. All 3 of their losses, they've been in it to the end, and have just fell short. But we talked about their offense, their defense, a great coaching staff. So I see. At this moment, if I were to say a team would be representing the San Diego section in Division I, my guess would be Cathedral Catholic at this point.
Yeah, I think it's hard to agree against that one. But now we go into our Week 5 previews with the game of the week, and it's going to be a highly anticipated one, just like this last week was. 4-0 Helix at 1-3 Cathedral Catholic. I mean, I guess it's somewhat of a rivalry game. It's been slowly building because it's over how many games that we've played against each other since I went there. And every single year, they're high intensity. A lot of those guys played against each other. I think this is going to be a massive game. Last year, low-scoring affair, came down to the pick at the end of the game. There's also the controversial play in that one as well. But I think Helix is riding too high right now. And I think it's going to be very hard for Cathedral to match that. However, we've seen what Jack Stevens can do. We've seen the bevy of wide receivers he has at his disposal. And we've seen what Ethan Ford can do running the ball. So it's going to come down, in my opinion, to Helix's defense. Because I think Cathedral's defense is more than capable. But how can Helix's defense stop Cathedral's offense? Because if they can, it's going to be very hard to stop the Helix rushing attack.
Both of these teams match up so well. A balanced offense, a legitimate defense. Both teams have quality quarterbacks. This game, to me, in Week 5, is probably the best matchup between 2 San Diego teams that we've had all season.
I think I agree on that one. If I had to lean one way, I'm probably leaning towards Helix, which pains me as a
Yeah,
Don.
I'm on Cathedral train just because they're at 1-3.
Yeah.
They not that they need this win more, but
it's almost like the party starts now.
Yeah.
You know, I know they schedule tough always.
Right.
So, but once you, and I know they still have to go out of town again one more time to Las Vegas, but once you schedule all these guys at the beginning and now you're starting to get into the San Diego teams, it's like now the party starts.
Right.
Because now you're going against the guys who are going to be in the direct competition for what matters, which is
Yep.
banners and rings. So, you know, it's hard right now to go against this Helix team, especially what I saw against Madison.
and I'd love to see Cathedral going up against Helix, and then they have the Western League. So they put all the doubters. They can silence all the doubters with big wins against big San Diego programs.
They absolutely can. And now we go to the National City Mile Cars South Bay game of the week, the game you will be at.
Yep.
1-2 Mar Vista at 3-1 Bonita Vista. When I went to go watch Bonita Vista, because I was filming their game against Hilltop, the kid that stood out to me was Caden Ada Tannehill. 19 carries, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, almost threw a touchdown as well, but it was tackled at the 1-yard line. I mean, when you have a player like that on, you know, let's say a lower division team who can take over the game, that can be everything for your team. I also liked what I saw from Bonita Vista's defense as well. I would favor them a lot. I think they're going into this with a lot of momentum, especially after that win against Hilltop. But Ada Tannehill has potential to take over any game he plays in.
I agree. The South Bay teams outside of modern day, the better ones in the past few years have been legitimate running teams. You talk about Montgomery when they had their success, Jose Guadalupe this year. These guys are averaging 20 touches per game, and Caden Ada Tannehill is doing the same here this year. He's put that offense on their back. We talk about coaches going back to their high school. Tyler Arciaga is doing a great job with that program. Took him a couple years to turn it around, but I also love to see they have their home field now. Their own home field. They don't play at Southwestern College anymore. And it's great to see them play at a home field and have success in their first year opening it up.
It's a beautiful field, too.
Yeah.
There, I think I was there for the soccer CIF finals, I believe.
Yep.
It's a phenomenal field. Cannot wait to see them play there. But now we move on to the Jersey Mike City game of the week. 2-2 La Jolla at 4-0 Mission Bay. You know, it's going to come down to where is Jackson Deal. You know, when we saw Hudson Smith, he looked okay at quarterback, but obviously it's not the same offense with him in there. You know, maybe he rises to the occasion against Mission Bay, but Mission Bay right now is putting up 33 points per game. Of course, the basketball star's putting up basketball numbers. Charlie Hutchinson at quarterback, 599 yards and 11 touchdowns through his first 4 games. David Dunn has been a massive part in that, 241 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. I did not see this coming from Mission Bay. You know, did I think they'd be athletic? Yeah. Did I think they'd add a different dynamic that nobody would kind of be ready for because there's no real tape on the guys? Sure. But to go 4-0 and you guys are putting up 30s on everybody, that's phenomenal.
With players who really have no varsity experience playing football, you would think they would take the L's earlier in the season. But the fact that they're 4-0 and they're going to continue to get better because they're athletes. And athletes just find ways to win, and it's just progress over time, especially when you have athletes like Charlie Hutchinson. This guy is going to be the big man on campus at Mission Bay, best sport athlete probably this year in the county because of his ability on the basketball court, and what he's doing on the football field right now is insane. From what I hear, Jackson Deal, he suited up at the game. He didn't play, but it sounded like if it was a big game that he possibly could have played. So I'm assuming he gets the call this week, but there's still a full week to practice and see how he plays. But La Jolla still has athletes on the outside. They're a well-coached team. They have a good enough defense to keep them in games. You know, I've gone against Mission Bay all season long, and they have burned me, so I'm not going to do it this week. But La Jolla is still a legitimate Division II team. So if Mission Bay beats La Jolla, they are the real. Not that they're not the real deal at 4-0.
No, but this is a bigger step for them.
This is that next tier, that next level up to where if you beat a quality Division II team, then Mission Bay has now put themselves as the front runner in their division.
I've liked the Vikings. I've liked them since the start of the year.
Yeah.
Jackson Deal offers a different dynamic. So for that, I think I have to lean towards Mission Bay because of what they can provide on offense.
Yeah.
And, you know, not to say that he's incapable of it, but we haven't seen that yet from Hudson Smith. If he comes to the party, because he has his weapons at his disposal. He's got a great O-line, he's got a good running back, he's got great wide receivers, and he has a really good defense. It's possible La Jolla could win this game. I feel more confident about it with Deal in there, so we will have to see how that plays out. But from what I've seen from Smith, I've seen from him in 7-on-7, he's a very capable quarterback.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
RB held him to 6 points.
Yeah.
They drove down to the 1 yard line 3 separate times and didn't score. It's a different game with Jacksonville behind snap.
Absolutely, and that's quick diver. RB has been phenomenal this year as well.
Defensively,
it's like every single game they're in it, man. The RBs have been a fun team to watch.
Right.
But now we move on to the North County game of the week. 3-1 LCC at 3-1 Fallbrook. We had Nick James go all the way out to Ramona. We're like, all right, now you have to go we've got to go all the way out to Fallbrook now. But when it comes down to Fallbrook, it starts and ends with Chris Bosch. 532 yards, 7 touchdowns in his first 4 games, continuing right where he left off last season. Fallbrook has been also a tough place to play for teams at times as well. But this LCC team is playing out of their minds. I like Quinn Roth a lot at quarterback for how young he is, but also Bubba Garcia has been phenomenal as well. 3 touchdowns in his last game. They are slowly becoming one of the more well-rounded teams in this county. I have them already now in my top 9 and could arguably be rising up higher. How do you see this one playing out? I could see a situation where Fallbrook could run the ball a lot, which makes it so LCC has to score every possession, but I don't see a situation where you can stop this LCC offense right now.
LCC is a Division I team.
Yeah.
If Fallbrook beats a Division I team,
it'd be phenomenal.
That might be their biggest win. I know they made it to the Division V championship game, or they were close last season. Or did they lose to Palo Verde?
Yeah, they lost to Palo Verde.
Yeah, they lost. And so for a lower division team to just be in the same conversation as LCC, kudos to them. If they win at home against a Division I top 9 team in LCC, I can't remember a last win with that program that would be so significant to that program.
Absolutely. And we get to the El Cajon Ford East County game of the week. 3-1 Santana at 3-1 El Cap. El Cap has to bounce back. That's a tough loss, especially when it comes off special teams touchdowns, and then the offense really not getting going against Steel Canyon. Steel Canyon, though, always a big program with big players.
Right.
This is a huge East County battle that I feel like every year always provides some sort of fireworks. I expect more of the same from El Cap this week. However, Santana has been off to a phenomenal start to start their season.
First loss against Fallbrook.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We just talked about a really good Fallbrook team. This is a show me game, right? 2 3-1 teams. They played against similar competition with similar records. So which team comes out on top? Tim Estes and Ron Berner are coaches that we don't talk about often enough because these guys have developed their programs year in and year out. We know El Cap has had successful years over the past few years, but Santana, Tim Estes, 10-plus years there. These guys have continued with their programs. They've stayed with their programs through the thick and thin. And it's a show-me week for both of these sides. And it's out of all the game of the weeks, other than the actual game of the week, that's the one I'm actually looking forward to the most.
Absolutely. And one player that has maybe we've given some love but hasn't gotten enough love has been Chance LaChapa and what he's been able to do at wide receiver. If you guys look up his numbers, they're phenomenal. And what he's able to do, he's slowly building a case to possibly be on the podium at the end of the year if he keeps this up. He's one of the most underrated wide receivers in this county, bar none in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now we get to the Dine and Dash game, the game I will be going to. I will be Dine and Dashing with the Carlsbad Lancers. They take on Ramona. Obviously, Ramona going to an overtime game against Poway. That's a tough one for them. It's going to be even tougher trying to beat Carlsbad. But I think this will probably be one of the tougher opponents I think Carlsbad will be facing so far from San Diego, with no disrespect to Modern Day Catholic. What I've liked what I've seen out of Ramona, they're very capable of running the ball. However, Carlsbad, it just feels like every time we watch the highlights, we're always focused on Julian Sand. There's like a new receiver every week catching touchdowns for them. It's going to be very tough for Ramona to stay in this game, in my opinion.
The transfer out of Texas is one of the best receivers in the county. And then you have the slot receiver in Jace Nix, or Joshua Ball, excuse me. And then the Griffin Rosenblum, right? 6'4", 6'5". So they have 2 receivers, 6'4 plus, and then a shifty, speedy guy in the middle of the field. It's so difficult to defend. When I see this Ramona team, it takes me back to the Granite Hills Helix game and how big of a letdown Helix had that following week after a tough OT loss. This is going to be we're going to see what Ramona is made of this week because that was a tough loss for them at home in overtime, and now they have to go on the road against possibly the best team in the county. This is going to be a great game for Ramona to see what they're about. And Carlsbad, this is just another game where we're probably going to see that drop off in tiers. But what a great get back game, right, for Coach Baldwin in that program. Forget about that tough overtime loss and then come back against a top program in Carlsbad and possibly get a win or even play close. That'd be a huge win for Ramona.
Yeah, it's hard when you lose that overtime game to be ultra focused that you need to be to beat a Carlsbad team.
Yeah, you have to have
be tough.
Yeah.
If they are to go out there and lose, which may be very likely against Carlsbad, the one player I want to see is Jamil Kassab and how he goes against all these top-level wide receiver talents.
Right.
That's who I'll be watching the most because I think he's phenomenal on the defensive side of the ball, also great offensively too. But what he's able to do in the secondary, that's who I'll be focused on, will be for that for Ramona.
Great job on the chopsticks, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought you handled that well in the last week's Dine and Dash.
Oh, I have to come prepared.
Yeah.
I can't show up and get the broken ones and then maybe they're not uneven. I come with the good chopsticks ready to go. We're finally getting pizza this time. I'll be going to that pizza place, which Coach McNeil owns.
Nice.
So they showed out last time there. This time, though, we will have someone actually eat the pizza.
Thad McNeil is another coach that we should give credit to. He's done it. He has the players to coach. You know, he has top talent at Carlsbad, but it's not always easy to coach top talent because it comes with top egos. And Thad McNeil has done a great job with that program.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the PPR podcast. If you want to hit us up and you want to hear some questions read out on the podcast,
we listen.
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, we check it all. So please do it. If you need to tag us, go ahead and do so. But we'll catch you guys next week.